Hello, legacy builders, and welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Pregame Podcast. I am Marcella Mollon-Williams, behavioral financial advisor, mindset coach, and legacy strategist for first generation legacy wealth builders. Today, I am honored to welcome a powerhouse leader, connector, and change maker, Iris Drayton-Spann. Iris is a managing director at Stanton Chase in Washington, D.C., where she specializes in executive search and coaching, helping leaders step into roles that transform not only their careers, but also their families and communities. That's so good. Her career journey spans from serving as Vice President of Human Resources and Chief Diversity Officer at WETA TV, one of the largest public television stations in the U.S., to becoming one of the top 10 most influential diversity and inclusive leaders of the year, as named by CIO Views magazine. She's been honored as one of the top 25 HR leaders in the DC region, and she continues to shape leadership pipelines across corporate, nonprofit, and social impact sectors. But beyond her titles and accolades, Iris brings a deeply personal story of what it means to be a first-generation high achiever, navigating family responsibilities, rejecting limits like imposter syndrome, and building a career centered on purpose, generosity, and impact. Join me in welcoming to the Legacy Pregame Podcast, Iris Drayton-Spann. Welcome, Iris.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. So glad to be here with you today. Definitely.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you here. We met a few months ago at an event where we both spoke.
Yes.
We were on separate panels.
Yes.
And your panel was first. And I'm glad I got there early enough to catch it. And you and another young lady was also speaking, and I loved the conversation. And as I'm listening to some of the things that you were talking about and listening to your to some of the things that you were sharing, it just stuck out to me. I'm like, wait a minute, you were having conversations about things at the time I didn't think I needed. It's not that I didn't think I needed or didn't need it. It didn't cross my mind as far as what my listeners need to hear. So you know that I came up to you after the panel. I said, okay, I need you on my show. I need to have a conversation about your experiences in corporate America, HR, interacting with these high-level experts, high achievers, first gens, and your experience working with them, coaching them, the mindset. And then, of course, you shared your own journey as a first gen. So I said, this is perfect. So I'm so excited that now we're here. We can have this conversation.
Definitely. It was a great conference too. It was a wonderful conference, great panel, great discussion. And it was great for me being on that platform with a younger person, African-American female, a younger person, talking about what it's like nowadays with searching for that next job opportunity, recruitment, what it's like to put yourself out there, what you should be thinking about, but also balancing that with AI, balancing that with people who have imposter syndrome, balancing that with people who don't think they're ready for the next step or the next level. So that was a really great panel to be on. And the young lady who was on it with me, we just had so much fun bouncing off of each other and hearing from someone from a millennial generation and an older generation myself, and how it coincides and how it crosses over and how we learn from each other. Because I learned so much from her, listening to her tell her story during that session as well. Definitely.
Yes, the chemistry was perfect. Again, that intergenerational conversations. I love that. We need more of that. That's something I'm always encouraging, because that is a part of how you build a legacy.
Yes.
Professionally and personally within families. So that's perfect. And we can bring some of that into this conversation today. But before we do, I always like to start just in the beginning with the personal journey, just to give our listeners just an idea about, how did you get to where you are today? I read the bio. They understand what you're doing now. But, there was a journey that was involved. And you grew up as the first in your family, I believe, to attend college, or definitely, to attend college, to, make six figures, to, really excel in your career. Mm-hmm. So I want you to share, of course, the journey, but I also want you to talk about the mindset shifts that were necessary for you to step into leadership and financial success. Not having that modeled in front of you. So I want the, the pains, the bumps, the bruises, all, to share. Please share.
Well, I think, being raised by two parents that had so much love, so much support, and we didn't know we weren't like rich people. We didn't know that. Me and my sister, we didn't know because our parents, we never even lived like that or thought like that. My mother finished high school, but my father made it to, I think, junior high. And neither one of them went to college. But it was never a limit put on us on what we could do. So I never knew growing up with my parents that I couldn't do something. My late mother was like, whatever you want to do, you can do it. You put your mind to it and you can do it. And my father was like, oh, you're going to do something, just, you're going to do it. Nothing's stopping you. Look at what we've done, to be here with you all and, have you all have a life ahead of you for what we've prepared and done. And, just meager upbringing. We didn't, we had everything we needed. We had everything we needed and everything we could wish for. A big family surrounding us, uncles and aunts all the time, a church family. But we had everything and we never saw ourselves as without. So coming from that mindset, from my mother's side of the family, I was the first grandchild to go to college. And my mother was one of 12. My father's one of 18. On my father's side, I did have a lot of cousins that were older than me that went to college, but on my mother's side, I was the first. And, for my parents, me and my sister, I went to college and I dreamed really big because I had applied to Howard and got there, Howard University, because I was like, that's where I want to go. So let me apply. And that's where I went. And so lucky that education was foremost with my parents. I was there on an academic scholarship. So, I was able to really go immerse myself, learn, grow, develop. And being at Howard University, also at an HBCU, gives you a mindset that you can conquer the world anyway. So, as everybody knows, my husband, we always joke about, he went to Lincoln University and my son went to Lincoln University and in Pennsylvania. And the minute someone says Howard University, we say, and my husband's like, does it always have to happen? And I was like, yes, it does. Yes, it does. I said, but I think from having parents that never told you couldn't accomplish something or do something, that was never a like, you can't be this or you can't be that. We never heard that growing up. We never could even comprehend that. It was, you put your mind to it, you work hard, and you'll be able to accomplish these things you want to accomplish. So going to college, I was able to get my undergrad degree at Howard University. And then after having, my son, being married, family, and wonderful stepdaughter, able to help raise her as well, me and my husband, and being able to then go get my master's degree at George Washington University. Never even thought about that either. And I was like, oh, if I want to get to this next level, I need to get that. So I was like, okay, let me go do that as well. And in between getting certifications, my HR certification, I got 2 separate certifications. And then I also got a CDE, which is a Certified Diversity Executive certification from the Institute of Diversity. And it was just, education was very, very important to me because I was like, I want to learn it so I can apply it. But it was always, if I do these things, then I'll be able to get to that next thing I want to do and there'll be no limits. So if I apply to a role, if I want to get to the next level, I won't have to hear anybody say you can't because you don't have. So that was never in the equation. But it was really interesting. It was really interesting because, once I finished undergrad, going out into the world, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, being married right out of undergrad to my first husband, a wonderful person, wonderful man that I have my son by. And he would just look at me because he was like, you're nonstop. I was like, yeah, I am. That's just me. And I said, I want to make sure my son understands this too, that this is how you have to move in the world, to do the things you want to do. You can't let anything stop you from doing those things you want to do. So going through that, and then after me and my son's father, after we divorced, and it was an amicable divorce, but after we divorced, raising my son as a single mom, and his dad was in his life, helping raise him as well. But I worked 2 jobs at one point because I just wanted to make sure he would be able to be taken care of, and he would see that hard work gets you those things you want to get. So working those 2 jobs with my young son, I was able to get home ownership. So it was like nothing ever was a limit with me. I never looked at things like that. And I'll never forget my father saying to me when I was going to get my condo, he was like, you sure you can do this on your own? And I was like, yeah, you all raised me so I could do it on my own or with someone. So he was like, okay, you got it. I said, I got it, Dad. It's okay. We're fine. So fast forward, met my husband, who I'm with now, and his wonderful daughter, my stepdaughter, Dana, my husband, Jeff. And me and my husband had we had a similar mindset. of you put in the hard work and you get things you want to accomplish. So, being remarried, and a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to do that again. I was like, this is my partner. I love him. We're going to build this life together. But early on in our relationship too, we talked about that. We talked about, what is it you want in marriage? What is it you want in life? How do you look at money? How do you, how do you look at all of those things? So we had those conversations early on. It wasn't an after the fact. It was before the fact that we had those conversations early on. And then fast forward, I was, my son was in high school, and I was like, yeah, I want to go get my master's degree, at GW. So my son was a big motivator of, while he was in high school, reminding me, you got to read, you got to study. I'd finish work and be reading and studying in the evening to take my master's program that was on the weekends, and I do that. So a lot of things had to be shuffled around for that. But I think what really cemented it was, that first opportunity out of undergrad to work at different places and decide where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. I pivoted in my career, because my undergraduate degree is in communications, and I worked at a TV station. It was like, okay, I like this, it's okay, but I don't know if this is really what I want to be doing. So I pivoted, because human resources was very attractive to me, because people were getting problem solved. That's how I looked at it. People would go there and get their problem solved. So I pivoted to that. I got a mentor who was in that space, a couple of them who were in that space, and they were like, well, you need to go get this, you need to do that if you want to really get into this and grow into that role. So I took it, ran with it, and made sure that I could set myself up to be in generalist roles and move my way up in human resources. And I ended up making that my career. And end up being, at one point when I was at the station, vice president of human resources and their first ever chief diversity officer at the station, and before coming here to the firm. And now that I talk about it and reflect on it, through all the ups, downs, bumps, and bruises, and how long it took to get that degree, that master's degree on the weekends, being a mom, a wife, and working and doing that, to be at the place I was able to be. I'm just very grateful, that I did it and stuck to it. But it was balancing a lot. It was a lot of balance.
I mean, that's such a journey, and I love your determination. As I'm taking notes here, just your work ethic, your drive, your commitment. There's so much that went into that, and it sounds like you got that from your parents.
Oh,
You
yes.
saw that.
Oh, yes.
As you said, as you told your dad, well, you raised me to do this.
Oh, yes.
And I love that you had the conversation with your husband about, these important issues, as far as, okay, what are we building together? Because that's one of the things that I emphasize when I talk to, because we do premarital financial counseling. And so we could address these things going forward, that this is a partnership. We call this, you use this word marriage, but what it is a partnership.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
That's what we have to understand. Marriage is secondary. The focus is on the partnership. How do we work together? So that is so important. So now when you went into your career, okay, so here you are, and, you're big time now, and you've reached, as you kept saying, you pivot, you reach another level that you never saw yourself in. You got this degree, didn't plan for that. So you're just rising, and you get to a point. You've reached a level of financial success. Now you've had the conversations with your husband, but tell me what needed to change on your part, or what was going on? How did you navigate mentally, financially, this financial success in your life at this stage?
That is such a great conversation, because I think when I got to a certain point, like I was a director of HR at one organization I was at, and my really, really good girlfriend, Adrienne, we had a conversation, and I'll never forget, because she's in finance. She goes, do you ever shop for yourself? And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, do you go shopping? You never go shopping. And I was like, well, I get things here and there. She's like, well, why don't you? And that really struck me, because I saw it as, I'm making money and I got to put it away. I can't be spending money on me. I got to take care of all these other things. I can't be spending money on me. I can't, I look nice. I buy nice things. I go shopping when I need to. But then I realized, when me and her were having that conversation, she's big on this. You got to take care of you first. You got to take care of you first. And that was a mind shift for me. It was a mind shift because I always took care of taking care of things and people. And you take care of that, then you can take care of you, which is nothing's wrong with that. But for me, financially, I didn't even see taking care of me, just being okay with purchasing some things for me, or shopping with, my friend Adrian, who was like, no, we're going shopping this weekend. You're going, I'm like, okay. And that was a big mind shift for me because I had to literally think about, it was okay for me to take care of me. I'm saving, I'm paying things, I'm taking care of family, take care of, household, me and my husband, all that. But it's okay for me to stop and take care of me and buy some things I might want to buy, splurge a little bit on myself. I had to really work on that. I had to work on that because I didn't see that as something that I should be doing. And she had to help me realize it was okay, not to the extreme, but it was okay to do that. And that took some time. That was not overnight. That was not overnight. It took some time because I think also as the oldest, that mindset of taking care of things, that's always how I think, how I move in the world, and how I was raised. You're responsible adult, responsible person. You take care of your things. You don't have to want or ask and all of that. You work hard, you save, you take care of your bills, you pay your bills, all that kind of thing. And to this day, we joke about it because I love pocketbooks. That's my thing. I am a pocketbook, purse, tote bag person. I love them to no degree. I'm unapologetic about it. And all of my friends that know me, they're just like, Iris, make sure in the will you leave me the purse collection you have. And that's my thing. But that was a mind shift. And to some people, it might not seem like a big thing, but to me, it really was, because I was like, what do you mean go shopping and get myself something? I looked at it as you have to have clothes to work. So, your suits, your shoes, all those things you need to work. I never looked at as just go shopping and buy yourself something and splurge a little here and there and do that. So that was a mind shift for me.
Did you feel guilt? Because, when dealing with first generation high earners, there are different responses to, suddenly making, more income than they're used to. It could be, "Whew, splurging, I'm going crazy here." Or your example, you said that you didn't think about it. It wasn't something that was natural. A shift was needed. What were you feeling? Were you dealing with guilt?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
So it
yes.
felt like you were if you did spend it, felt guilty because you were being irresponsible. You have to take care of others. You weren't
Yes.
thinking about putting
Yes.
your oxygen mask on first. You were
Nope.
thinking, wait a minute, that's what I'm supposed to do, especially as the eldest.
Yes.
And that was the role you were taking on.
Oh yeah. It was big guilt. And it was a weird kind of guilt. It was weird because I was like, oh my goodness, why am I feeling like this? And I know I was going to take care of my son, me and my husband and our home and family and anything else like that, bills, paying credit cards, all the whole 9 yards, everything was being taken care of. And I felt guilt because I was like, why would I go and do this? Literally. And when I tell you she had to keep talking to me, she literally had to talk to me. It was not just like she said this statement and then we went shopping the next day. That did not happen. It took time for, me to realize. I was like, okay, Adrian, I can go shopping with you. And she was like, finally, come on, let's go. But it took time because it was that guilt of, what if I needed to take care of this? Why am I being frivolous? Why am I doing this? And I had to literally, what you just said was powerful, put on my oxygen mask first. And it was okay in this situation and instance to put it on me first. It's okay if I want to put it on first and do something for me, and it doesn't have to be every day, every week. It could be every other month or whatever, but it was okay for me to do it. And talking to myself about that too. Talking to
Yeah.
myself about that. It was
You said
okay.
talking to yourself about that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you have the conversations with yourself
Yep.
to
Having that conversation.
reinforce that it's okay?
It's okay. It's okay. And to this day, she says, she said, I created a monster. I created a Frankenstein. And we joke about it and laugh about it because I was like, well, yes, you did. Yes, you did. But we can joke about it. We can laugh and joke about it because I don't feel guilt stopping and doing something for me, whether it's buying myself a purse or a coat or a pair of shoes or boots or whatever that thing is. I don't feel guilt towards it or about it.
I love that. And thank you for sharing how you walked yourself through that, because people really need to understand that it's a journey.
It's a
And that
journey.
there's this process that it takes. It doesn't happen overnight. You had someone there who
Mhm.
first pointed out the situation. They noticed. So you had a friend who was able to identify, and this is the friend that was in finance, right?
Yes,
Right. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So, and then you coming from a place of scarcity, not just from your childhood, which for most people is where it is, but you went through a divorce.
Yeah.
You know, you went through a divorce is a very traumatic financial situation, just as much as it is with everything else. Divorce is one of those things that will cut your net worth in half and put some people in the poorhouse.
Mhm,
So, you had to work two jobs. At one point, you were a single mom.
mhm,
You were thinking about, okay, what do I need to do? Survival mode,
mhm,
scarcity. There were things you were going through.
mhm,
That programming doesn't just leave overnight.
mhm, mhm.
It gets embedded in you. So a lot of things we don't remember is that, or we don't think about is that when the money comes, it doesn't mean the mindset comes with it. You have to do the work to
Yeah,
get the bus, and that's what you just demonstrated with us. You had someone there to support you through that, to remind you. Sometimes we're so used to DIYing things, so we think, "Oh, I'll just figure it out."
yes.
But you had a wonderful friend that was able to walk you there and help you and help create the monster and the I think she deserves to be in that will for the bags at some point. But, it was a process, and
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing that because I definitely want, our listeners to understand because I know that so many, have experienced that or maybe still experiencing that level of guilt, and it comes in
Mhm.
different shapes and forms,
Oh,
but that
yes.
guilt is there if you did not come from money,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and it'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
then you have to work through it, so that's
Oh, yeah.
wonderful, and then so I hear in that, responsibility
Mhm,
was embedded as a part of that. And I know as the eldest sibling, you've had a leadership role, and we've talked about that. So
mhm,
I would love for you to share and just so we can just kind of transition to you as a professional leader
mhm,
and how your that leadership that was needed in your family life
mhm,
translated to the professional leadership experience that you have right now, how
mhm,
it influences the way that you lead professionally, and then maybe how you lead professionally still influences the way that you lead personally, and how you be, and you can share how you see that in the executive that you're placing.
mhm,
Because I know you're coaching and all of that. So I would love
mhm,
for you to just share just
mhm,
the aspects of leadership and not to isolate it in just one
mhm,
space, but how you
mhm.
do one thing is how you do everything. So please share about your leadership experience and how it's been influenced personally and professionally.
Well, I think the more I moved in spaces in my career, okay, if somebody doesn't want to do it, let me figure out it. I'll do it. And that's what really attracted senior leaders to see what I could do. And I think the other thing too that has to do with the way I was brought up and the way I move in space is staying calm in difficult situations. And when people see that in you, that you can keep your head, and I think that's part of growing, being a leader, and applying it in your personal life and then at work, they saw that in me. So I was given opportunities to be promoted, to apply for higher roles, to take on more. But I always did that. The more I moved up, I would come in and see something and go, well, why aren't we doing that? And they're like, well, nobody wants to do it. And I was like, well, I'll take a crack at it and do it. And that was one of the big things that I saw people saw in me, that I would do it. I'd figure it out, I'd do it, have a result, program, initiative, or whatever that was, move something forward in my HR role with my team for the organization. And they would be like, oh, okay, yeah, we can promote you because you know how to do this thing. But I think the other thing too with the leadership part is I'm just one of those people. I can stay calm in situations, whether it's the fire going on, the flooding floor, the ceiling caved in, whatever that is. Situations, I would stay calm and be able to look at the situation holistically and then apply what I needed to do or bring in other people to help do it, because it was never by myself. It was bringing that team around me, that tribe around me at work, how we're going to do this together. But I've always been one of those types of people. So the more I moved up in my career and into those VP roles, and never in my wildest dream I'd ever thought I'd be in a VP role or C-suite role. I never even thought that. It was just, okay, I'm here, and I got there and I'm like, okay, great. I love this because this hard work has paid off. So in all of my roles, and even before I came here to the firm, the last role I was at when I was at WTA TV, being the vice president of HR and also the first chief diversity officer, it was, leaders, executive seeing what I could do and how I thought and how I interacted with everyone as well, from entry level all the way up. It was always the same Iris. So everyone knew they'd get this same person. I didn't change once I got in a different room. And that goes to an asterisk of I just don't have this thing with imposter syndrome. I just never I didn't even know what it was. So something you don't know, you can't claim. And I don't like to claim things I don't know about on me. So for me, it was like, oh, here's this thing we need to figure out. And I'd be like, let me take a crack at it. Let me see if I can figure it out, get a team together, pilot it, work on it. Let's see how it rolls out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, let's go back to the drawing board. And that what I brought, my experience, my whole person, my thinking, and the way I moved in spaces was the thing I know that really helped make me move up the corporate ladder and to get into those roles. I think taking all of that leadership, because I had to do it from from when I could remember, up into all of my careers and things like that, but taking it into the role I'm in now at the firm, when I'm working with candidates for my clients for these senior level and executive level roles, that's the thing we can talk about. I always ask about that. How do you see yourself as a leader? How do you show up as a leader? Or sometimes I've talked to people about, why don't you want to be a leader? Why don't you want to go for this opportunity? Let's talk through that. Let's work through that. And that could be from just me working with candidates who are interested in a role, and also the executive coaching side of what I do too, of helping people see themselves in certain spaces, in different spaces, and asking those open-ended questions of why or why not, and just leaving it quiet so they can think through it and then talk through it. But I think it's important because that leadership role you have even in your family translates into your career and into your work life and into how you show up in spaces, being on boards. I've been on boards before. It shows up in all of that. It shows up in all of it. And especially with the work that, I do at the firm with my colleagues, I work with a lot of nonprofits and NGOs and associations, for-profit organizations filling these roles. And it's, having these conversations to really get to know the candidates. Who are you? What makes you stand out, and asking them that. It's not just, oh, I know you're interested in this opportunity, let's move it forward. No, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know you because my client wants to get to know you too. So it's how do you show up when I'm working with people and talking with them about these opportunities? And I think the other thing too is working with my clients. In the firm that I work at Stanton Chase, we're a retained search firm, so we have to get clients. So we build relationships with people to bring them in as clients. It's all relationships. People have to trust you to bring you in to do this work with them, to fill these roles for them that are going to be impactful in their organizations. And then for the candidates, they're trusting me to meet them, to see them, and present them to my clients in the best light, and get back to them and give them good feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, that feedback that I have to give them. So it's a lot of trust that has to go into do this kind of work that I do. But I think it goes back into that leadership, being a leader in your family, being a leader in your career and the roles that you've had, and being a leader in other spaces that you have to travel, whether it's volunteering, boards, or whatever that looks like, your church, whatever that looks like. It all is interrelated. It's all interrelated. But something that's really important to me is I am very intentional about who I am and my purpose. And I everyone who knows me knows this iris that you see is the iris you get. Everyone gets this iris. Everyone, no matter who you are, your title, your role. I'm very respectful of everyone, but they get this. I don't change it for situations or for people, and that keeps me true to me. That keeps me true to me. I don't have to worry about showing up as somebody else or something else or tweaking something. I'm like, this is Iris. This is the Iris you get. My husband gets, my family gets, my clients get, the boards I'm on, everyone gets this Iris when I show up in spaces, because I'm intentional about my purpose and who I am. And I think the other thing too is being happy with who you are. You have to be happy with who
Mhm.
you are. If you are happy with who you are, you don't have to change for different spaces that you're in.
Yes. Oh, you said some great things there. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, being happy with who you are, it's almost like if you are intentional about who you are and about simply being, showing up in the world authentically everywhere, then it will lead to being happy because you're not putting on airs, you're not putting on mask and trying to figure out who am I today and where am I going to show up. It brings more fulfillment when you can simply be.
Oh,
You know,
yes. Yes.
be purposeful about who you are, who you were created to be, and live in that space. So I love that. You talked about it in the beginning, you talked about leadership and, you know, You said something like my brain is just going so many different places. Let me try to stay focused on where I want to go with this, because you said something and it always reminds me of what I want my clients, our listeners to remember, is that when it comes to leadership, it's home is an amazing foundation for that.
Mhm.
And I remind me of what I would tell my kids when, I have boy and a girl, and they're about 18 months apart. And growing up, I raised two leaders. I was very intentional about raising thought leaders. That was my intention. And so with that, headstrong,
Uh-huh.
and they would clash. And I would tell them, if you can learn to deal with each other, you'll be able to deal with anyone. You'll if you can learn how to navigate these clashes, you'll be able to do great with your spouse, with your coworkers, whoever you're leading. And really what I worked hard to incorporate and what I heard in you was emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Be like you said, you didn't lose your cool. You were able to navigate any type of situation, stay calm, collected, and make important decisions in emotionally heightened positions. So I love that you mentioned that, because I want to make sure that emotional intelligence is never overlooked as a necessary skill in leadership.
Oh,
To
yeah.
me, whoo, that is a big one. And it is just as needed in financial decisions at home, at work. And again, I'm trying to paint this picture here. No matter if it's personal or it's professional, it
Yes.
is the same skills, the same behavior that is needed. So I love that you brought that up. And then let's talk about imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
because you said that is not something you dealt with.
Mhm.
And I love that. There are situations, like I say, I'll deal with some Swiss cheese confidence every now and then, just little holes, as they call it. Every now and then you're like, oh, okay, then you get out of the hole and you're fine. Imposter syndrome is probably not something that I would necessarily say I struggled with, but we have to, I have to just be real with that. Many first gen professionals do struggle
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
They do struggle with self doubt.
Mhm.
And again, it comes with what we were talking about earlier, as far as that mindset where you came from, whether it's scarcity, lack, you didn't see this in your environment. Now you're here and you're asking yourself, do I deserve to be here?
Mhm. Mhm.
Do I deserve the space? So can you
Mhm.
just share any advice, since, you're someone who didn't have to deal with this, but I'm pretty sure in your coaching and executive coaching, you had to navigate, help some of your clients really work this out. Can you share some advice that you would give to first gen professionals who are struggling with self-doubt?
Mhm. Mhm. And definitely, I don't want to downplay it and overshadow it, because I know people have to deal with that and are feeling that or experienced it in their life, personal work, the imposter syndrome. I think for me, it's it's walking into a situation, like you said, with your emotional intelligence, and not doubting why you're there, but flipping it. I'm here for a reason. And I think that's the thing that helps change the mindset. I'm here for a reason. I've worked hard, I've put in the time, the experience, I've gotten the degrees or certification, whatever that looks like, to get you to that space. And I'm here, and now let me do what I need to do, because this is where I wanted to be. And it's that emotional side of it, when you listen to people who might be doubters of you. And I think that's the thing we have to be very mindful of. And that's what I always, a big part of what I like to talk to clients about from that coaching and also candidate experience, but from the coaching, is who are the people you surround yourself with? You are the people you surround yourself with. I have the best group of people around me. I mean, all of my women friends who are in my circle, they know they are my best friends, all of them. And they are some of the best people on the planet. And I'm very intentional about the people I surround myself with, that I go places with, that I invite to things, that I bring into my network, that I introduce to other people. Who do you surround yourself with? Because if you surround yourself with people who are thinking a certain way, you don't fall into that. And that's something simple and easy you can do. Making sure that pool of people around you are positive. They don't have to be Pollyanna 24/7, but have some positiveness. People around you who will challenge you on something, but they'll do it in a way that's kind, because it's meant to better you, not put you down. Surrounding yourself with people who you can uplift when they are down, because that helps you when you're uplifting other people. But you are the people you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with negativity, that feeds into you. That starts to deteriorate who you are and your self worth. And then you go into those spaces thinking, do I deserve to be here? Should I not be here? Who do you surround yourself with? Who are you listening to? Who are you looking at on TV? Who are you looking at on YouTube? Who are you following on all of those social medias? You really have to dig deep and stop and think about, what am I feeding into me? Not just food, but mentally. What am I feeding into myself? And especially as a first gen, who am I taking care of first? Who am I surrounding myself with? And who am I listening to? Because that's vital. That helps build who you are. If you surround yourself with negative people who are negative all the time, no matter what you say or do, they find something negative and wrong with it. You're starting to believe it. You're going to start believing it. You're going to start believing it. Having people around you that can give you balance will feed into you and help uplift you and build you up. And I think that's important to me because I like to build up people. I like to lift up people. Anybody who engages with me, I am the Myers-Briggs extrovert to the 18th power. I don't care if it's a restaurant. I'm talking to the waitress or the waiter. I'm like, what else you want to do? What is your interest? That kind of thing. And my husband's like, can we just eat dinner? Can we just have dinner? But that's me because I'm always thinking about, oh, maybe I can do something to help lift someone else up. How do I help lift them up? But it's who you surround yourself with. That is so important. That is so important. I had a conversation recently with someone, and I think she got it because she was talking about this person who was always negative with her. No matter what positive thing she did, they always went to the negative. And I just kept saying, you need to get rid of that. No matter how painful it might be, no matter who they are, you don't need that because you're in a different place and space where you're skyrocketing to somewhere else that person isn't in, and they can't see that skyrocket you're on, and they're not trying to be a part of it because of whatever they're going through, and they're putting it on you. And you can't own that. You have to dig deep and be a part of what your trajectory is and bring those positive people around you. And again, not Pollyanna, but positive people who can tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly in a way that is kind and uplifting, because you're going to do the same thing with them. And that has been very important to me, very important throughout my life. I'm older, wiser. That is so important. That is very important of who is in my circle, who is in my friend circle. I got my husband circle and family circle. It's who's in my work circle, who's in that friend circle around you. Your people around you who have your space and attention can either uplift you or break you down. So stop and think about it. Is this person here for a reason or a season? And I hear that so much, and I love that. Are they here for a reason or a season?
Hmm. And then, that's so good. Everything you said there, I really hope listeners, if you have to go back and hear this again and again, please do so, because those were powerful lessons that need to be implemented, that need to be questioned, that need to be observed right away. I always say that every next level requires a different version of ourselves. And with that next version, you have to figure out who is compatible with that version, because the version you were when maybe you met someone and they came into your life may not be the version that they can handle, that they can even handle right now, for all the reasons you just stated.
Mhm.
And it also may not be the person that can be with you and with the remainder of your journey with every next level.
Oh, yes.
And I love that. That's such an important part. And even what you were sharing there reflects back as to why you weren't dealing with imposter syndrome, why your confidence is the way it was, why you show up the same way everywhere. It all ties together. And it's no wonder that, everywhere you go, people love you, and you shine in a room and you just have this energy. Even just being an extrovert, right? And I tell people, I'm a natural, I'm an introvert, and most people don't believe me. But the key is, it's kind of like what you said about showing up, being comfortable with yourself.
Mhm.
And my husband always laughs when I say this, but I would say I love me some me, right? I love me. Okay. I had to go through that process. I love me, but it's important to love me because, as the Bible says, you have to love your neighbor as yourself.
As yourself. Yep.
And you're only going to be able to love your neighbor to the degree that you love yourself. So if I love myself a lot, I'm going to love my neighbor a lot. And I'm going to have the capacity, right,
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
able to do that. And I hear that in you. I hear that you have the capacity to care and build relationships and do great for your clients and do great for your family, because you love you. You show up. You don't have to hide you. You
Yep.
get to be you everywhere you go. And it makes room for others. And that's why things like imposter syndrome and self-doubt actually could be detrimental to both who you are personally and professionally. So thank you for sharing just how all that comes together through relationships.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I want to kind of go back to relationships because, like you said, that is your job, you know,
Yes.
and you do it so well because you understand the importance of relationships. So I would love for you to share, how that shaped your career and just any practical steps that first gens can take in cultivating powerful networks. Because
Mhm,
again, that could be, we're navigating from a place of, okay, wait a minute, I belong in this room
mhm,
now.
mhm,
Okay, I belong. So now how do I take now this to a next level
mhm.
and be able to grow in this space through networking, developing lasting relationships. And there's a thing saying never leaving places negative, never leaving
Yep.
negative energy around. So
Oh yes.
please
Definitely.
share.
Definitely. I think one of the things we do at our firm, at Stanton Chase, specifically our office, our DC office, is we all go to a lot of networking events. We're big on going to networking events because you're meeting people, potential clients, but potential candidates, but also getting the word out about who we are, what we do. I go to a lot of networking events that are work, but also personal. And I always tell people, because I did a session on this years ago at a conference. When you go to networking, it's not about all the time telling somebody who you are and what you do. It's asking them who they are and what they do. And that is like the icebreaker of life. If you're at a networking event and you walk up to someone, I'm Iris Drayton-Spann, Managing Director of Stanton Chase, but who are you and what do you do? And what is the best thing about what you do? People relax, they open up and have conversations, they lean into you because you genuinely are concerned about them and who they are. And that goes a long way. That goes a long way. So showing up at networking events, whether no matter where it is, no matter what it's for, lean in with that first. Lean in with that first. And especially as first gens, it's finding out about other people and why they're on the path they're on, because you can learn something from that too. And everybody can learn something from someone, good, bad, or otherwise. You're going to learn something from every interaction. But when you go to a networking event, just do that. Ask that person's name, who they are, where they work, and why do they love doing the work that they love to do. People enjoy telling you why they do what they do, but you have to be genuine about it and wanting to listen to it and hear it. And it is people relax, they lean in and they start talking because that they drop their guard. They drop their guard because you're being genuine about it, because you really do want to hear from them and know. It doesn't have to be an hour conversation, it could be a few minutes, but you're stopping and asking about them first, not just spewing about who you are. And I think, in leadership and in business and any environment you're in, especially, navigating, different situations, it's also, what do you want to leave people with after they meet you? One of the things we did at the firm, we have our LinkedIn now code on the back of our business card so people can just scan it and connect with you on LinkedIn. And I love that. I love that. That is just the most fabulous thing on the planet now, because a lot of people don't want your business card. So I have them in case they do want it, but I'll tell people, oh, if you don't want it, here, just scan me real quick. And they just love it. They pull their phone out, they scan it, they have you, and they're connected with you. And I'm like, let's connect. Let's continue this conversation. But I think it's meeting people where they are and learning more about them and being interested in them. And that shows you as a leader too. That reflects back on you as a leader. It's not always about what you can get, but what you can give. Because when people see that, then they'll want to give. Then they'll want to stay connected. Then they'll want to be in your circle and in your aura, and in your space with you. So I think that's important. I think that's important. Definitely. And that thing about you have to love yourself first. That goes back to the being happy. It goes back to being happy. Every day isn't sunshine for me. Every day isn't sunshine and a parade, but just waking up being happy I have another day. I live to see another day. Look at what I have. Look at who's around me. Look at what I get to do. I'm happy about that. And sometimes you might be at that space where you're not at that plateau where you want to be, or you might have a setback. It's not every day, it's not rainbows. It rains, it rains in Southern California, it rains, but you stop and you just go, I'm happy because I live to see another day. I'm up and I get to try it one more time. I get to make an impact somewhere. I get to change someone's life, no matter how big or small that is. It could be just texting somebody and telling them, you know what, you're going to have a great day. Don't let that get you down. That thing you're in right now is not going to last forever. Just do that to someone. Just do that, because that's sharing who you are. That's sharing this space with someone else and uplifting them. But I think that's the thing, that loving yourself and being happy with yourself, just waking up every day. I got up another day. I get another chance at this. I get another opportunity at this. I get another reason to do something good, to leave that lasting impact, and understanding your purpose. Again, understanding your purpose. And that quiet in the morning, also, you don't have the noise. You don't have the noise. So you get to hear yourself before everybody's up and awake and family and moving around and computers and friends and phone. Just be with yourself for a few minutes. Stop and be with yourself for a few minutes when you get up in the morning. Because we're high achievers. We're high achievers first and foremost, but you do have to stop to balance and give yourself that little time and space, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, to meditate, to just be still, and be grateful that you've seen another day.
Such great advice. Excellent advice for our listeners to really pick up on. And, as we wrap up this conversation, I just want to emphasize and I want you to share a bit more tips for them. You've placed dozens of professionals in executive roles, and you shared some stories. You shared with me some stories about how you've not only changed just their careers, but their families. I remember a conversation you shared about speaking to a spouse of someone that you've placed, and I absolutely love that story. So, what does legacy mean to you in the context of opening doors for others? Because, again, I know that's important to you.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah, how does that show up for you?
I think, from coming from parents that had really, really big families, and always growing up, me and my sister were surrounded by uncles and aunts all the time, all the time. And I tell people, my Uber drivers even know, I was like, I grew up not knowing that people didn't have aunts and uncles around them all the time, and when I would go to school and I'm like, oh, you don't have 10 aunts and uncles at your house all the time, and they were like, no. And I was like, oh, okay, you're missing out. But it was that family, surrounded by family, seeing family all the time, spending holidays with big families. And I think for me, the work that I get to do and help change in lives with people who are looking for that next place to be, where they can expand their career, go to the next level, or either just, if they're not working, wow, you got me into this opportunity, with this great organization. It goes back to, what are your personal values? What are your priorities? What are your personal values? And how do you show up when you're interacting with people? That purpose, your intentionality of who you are, but your personal values. And I think for me, what's important, and the legacy that I'd like to leave on this planet, is, what did I do for someone else that improved them? Whether it was their life, education, mentoring, volunteering, whatever that thing is, what did I do to improve someone else's life? Someone paid it forward for me. Someone laid the foundation for me so that I could be here and have the opportunities that I had, and to show me the way and to show me examples. I had that. And to have this in my life, and what I want that legacy to be, what are you doing to be intentional about your personal values and the things you've been blessed with? How are you going to leave that? What is that going to look like? Who did you impact? Who did you do something for? Where did you donate to? How did you give? Whether it's financially, that is a big part of who I am. I love to donate to organizations that have causes I believe in, and being on boards that have causes I believe in. But that's part of your legacy. Not just what you're doing here right now, but what is it going to be when you're not here? What was that thing somebody's going to say about you? And that person whose wife who called me to say, you changed the trajectory of my husband's life and our family. And that resonates with me forever, because I didn't intend to do that, but that was the after effect of helping this person get into this role, and where he is seen in his role, where he's uplifted, where he's being supported by his president and his CEO and the COO. He's being supported by them, and he's growing his team, and he's making an impact with his team. So it's a trickle down effect, not just what I did by helping him be there, but what now he's doing in that group of people that he's around. So for me, it's very important, of that legacy you leave behind, of who did you affect? What positive effect did you have on them? And how did you help change their life? Because you did it in yours, and someone helped you do it in yours. So what did you do in theirs? I've had two mentors in my career. I've had a lot of mentors. Two really, really stand out. One still alive and the other one passed. And they saw in me in my first corporate job, something I didn't see. And I'm like, to this day, I'm like, what did they see? They took me under their wings. Two women took me under their wings, and they poured into me everything: how to show up in this corporate space, where to be, how to look, how to speak up, how to lean back when you're in these meetings with these senior people. Just, they poured everything to me. They took me out to lunch, to dinner, and they poured into me. And I know a major reason I'm where I'm at today is because of the late BJ Quinn and Angela Taylor, who's still alive, two of my mentors that I've had my whole career. And BJ was just wonderful. And the impact these two women poured into me, that they saw something in me to make sure I had someone around me helping me navigate this corporate environment. They talked to me about spending my check, finances, saving, putting money in the bank, investing. Early on in my career, they talked to me about, who are you with outside of work? How are you volunteering? They talked to me about all of that. And to have that legacy lives on in me, that they poured in me, and I make sure I pay it forward. I make sure I pay it forward. So that's
Wow.
important. That's important.
That is so powerful, Iris. Thank you for sharing that. My goodness, I loved this conversation. I
And I love speaking people's names, because people are important, and you have to speak their name because they
yeah,
made an impact. They made an impact.
yes.
Those two people, lots of people in my life have made an impact in my life. You know, my family, my parents, husband, son, stepdaughter, friends, everyone. But you speak the names of people who made that impact, because that's important. That's
Yeah.
important, to speak their names. To speak their
Oh,
names.
I love that. Yeah, and I'll add to that because you said speak the names of people that have impacted you, and and I'm sure you probably do this. You get to whether you're at a restaurant and the waiter. One of the things my husband and I always make sure we're like, "What's your name?"
Yes.
And then when they
Yes.
serve, you always thank you, and you speak their name, because that's a connection. It's a psychological connection. We connect more when we hear our name said.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
mess. It signals our brain to say, "Oh, they see me." We automatically feel connected to someone when they say our name.
Yes.
And
Yes.
how you just said it, there's a duality to that, as far as recognizing people who should be recognized, period. As far as who we are for simply being, and then speaking the names of those people, like you just said, who have made a significant impact in your life,
Definitely.
and whether long after they're gone. So I love that you brought that up, because it ties into the relationships and the power of relationships, and simply showing up in the world and appreciating others for showing up in the
Yes.
world. And
Oh,
when we can
yes.
just do that, that's powerful all in itself. We make room for so much space in this world for us
Oh,
to move
yes.
through and navigate through.
Oh,
So
yes. Oh,
thank you
yes.
for bringing that up. And thank
Definitely.
you for this conversation. It's so hard for it to come to an end, because I love there's so much more we could talk about, but for the sake of time, I guess I have to kind of wind it down here. But I just loved everything that you shared. And I really want to thank you for reminding us that legacy is how others will experience our existence, both
Yes. Yes.
now and in the future. And
Definitely.
that we all have the power to make that experience meaningful.
Yes. Yes.
That's the key to everything that you've said here today, that
Yes.
we all of us have the power of making that meaningful. So, how before we go, I want to find out a couple things I want to do before you go.
Mhm.
How can listeners connect with you? You mentioned LinkedIn, so please share so that our clients can connect with you.
Iris Drayton-Spann, Managing Director, Stanton Chase. I'm on LinkedIn. That's the platform I'm on. That's my preference, where I like to be. It's business, it's personal, but it's connecting to people I know. So you can just look me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect. And I think the other thing is, you can go to our website, stantonchase.com, our website, and you can click into finding Washington, D.C., and because we have 75 offices in 40 plus countries, the organization. So we're, very international as well here in the United States. But just look me up on LinkedIn. And I'm just so grateful to be here with you today and to have this conversation. And it's really made me reflect on where I've been, where I'm at, and where I'm going. And thank you for having me. And thank you for the connection, meeting me at the conference. Thank you so much for that connection and just having this conversation today. I think it's vitally important. And thank you for having the platform that you have to do this. because that's important for people to know, to learn from others, learn from each other. So thank you so very much. Thank you, thank you, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Iris. Thank you very much. And, before we go, I'm going to ask you one thing, and this is something I ask all the guests that come on, and you kind of alluded to it in
Uh-huh.
the last question I asked you, but I want you to repeat and complete this statement because I use this as a kind of a time capsule for all of my guests. And so now it's documented on video. So,
Okay.
and it's something you can share with future generations. So I want you to repeat this and then complete the statement. And it goes, I am Iris Drayton-Spann, and this is the legacy that I'm living and leaving in the world.
Whew. This is Iris Drayton-Spann, and this is the legacy I am living and leaving in the world: to be intentional, to uplift others, to value your life, to be purposeful, to live a life of purpose. And that's for me, to live a life of purpose. You have to live a life of purpose. You're given this great gift. Live a life of purpose.
I love it. I love it. Thank you again so much for sharing not only your professional insights, but also your heart and your personal journey with us today. Thank you so much, Iris.
Thank
Thank
you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
you. You're welcome. Legacy builders, I hope you take away what Iris has modeled here for us today so beautifully. Confidence without apology, generosity without hesitation, and leadership that just shows up at home, at work, and in the community, everywhere she goes. So, and if today's conversation really resonated to you, if it spoke with you, share this episode with another legacy builder, with your family, everyone you know who needs to hear this encouragement, this encouraging message. And of course, do not forget to subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, live well, build wisely, and prepare with purpose.